Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. What we have for you today is our wildcard video going into Game Week 27. And even if you're not wildcarding, hopefully it helps you out with your free transfers moving forward. And if it does, please do subscribe, like the video. I actually don't tell anybody that I've got this channel and I make these videos. Kind of just want to chat FPL and hopefully it grows organically. The only person who does know and watches it is my dad, and it's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Dad. Hopefully this team will help you out with your own team moving forward. Before we get into this video, I did build this team with blank Game Week 29 in mind, where you don't have to use your free hit chip to get through it, and hopefully you can just have 10 or 11 players for that game week without too much effort. As always, I'm recording this before Sunday's games have kicked off, so if there's any injuries, I'll post replacement players in the comments, but I do discuss alternatives in the video as well. So let's get into it, and we're going a bit out there with the keepers to start off with. I've actually gone from Jorgensen from Chelsea. Now, hear me out. I know he's not guaranteed minutes, but he has started the last 3 games and does look like he's Chelsea's number 1 for the time being. Chelsea also aren't keeping clean sheets, but they do have Southampton and Leicester both at home in the next 2. You could even go Sanchez as your backup keeper. He's only 4.6 million to ensure you always have a playing keeper. After those 2 games, you could always take him out, but clean sheets are so inconsistent throughout the league right now. I think you could just save money here and upgrade elsewhere in your team. If you wanted more security, Raya is the go-to if you have the budget, but he is 1.3 million more, so it's really what you think is worth putting your money into. Onto the defence, and you might think there's some questionable picks here, but there are reasons for each one. Now, Gabriel is the most obvious. I've just brought him into my own team, and I know Arsenal didn't have the best time against West Ham, but they have only conceded 2 in their last 4, and before they played West Ham, they were unbeaten in their last 15 league games. They also have good fixtures going all the way to the end of the season, and they'll likely finish in the top 2, so you have got that consistency moving forward. There's also not a lot of appealing attacking options for Arsenal, so I do think it's worth having an Arsenal representative, and he is the best one. I went for Mazraoui as his minutes are guaranteed, and Man United play Ipswich and Leicester in the next 3, and he's only 4.3 mil. So for a little more, I do think Dogu has a bit more attacking threat, but either are worth the short-term risk. He's also an easy rotate with Aït-Nouri. Speaking of Aït-Nouri, I think Wolves are going to be the next team that everyone's going to be talking about. Whilst he's been quiet recently, he did have 8 attacking returns earlier in the season. Now, I know that was maybe in a different system for Wolves, but the potential is still there. Fulham, Everton, Southampton, West Ham and Ipswich in the next 5. I think now is the time to take advantage of those fixtures. I've also opted for Huijsen from Bournemouth. There's a chance they become a little bit more inconsistent towards the end of the season when the pressure starts rising, but the fixtures are still there, and at 4.5 million, he's a good price risk. I think if you own Lewis Hall, you keep him in your team, even with the blank Game Week 29, as from Game Week 30 onwards, you're going to want him in. So rather than lose the value you have in him, I think it's worth going with 10 players in Game Week 29 for the overall points you'll save. And I've also still got Bednarek as my 3rd bench option. So the defensive picks are a little uncertain maybe. Maybe they're not your favourite players to get in your team. But the midfield should be a little bit more secure for the most part. Salah needs no introduction, but Palmer is someone who does need a little bit more explaining. If they didn't have Southampton and Leicester in the next 2, he likely wouldn't be here. But given that you probably already own him in your own teams, I wouldn't take him out right now. After Game Week 28, I do think there's a real option to sell him and upgrade a forward to Haaland, given Man City's strong run-in. I just take what points you can get from Palmer in the meantime. That brings us on to Foden. Now, I know we've been here before, but now Man City are out of the Champions League, I do think there's potential for them to go on a bit of a run. By the time you're watching this, they may have just lost to Liverpool, but after that, I think they've got great fixtures all the way till the end of the season, especially from an attacking point of view. Foden has started each of the last 10 league games, so I think his minutes are secure, and 3 game weeks ago, he just got 9 returns in his previous 7. So I really do think that a Man City player at this point in the season could give you a great differential pick. If you can't afford Foden, I'd go for Savinho. I think Nwaneri is a great enabler, a cheap playing player who allows you to get in more expensive attackers. He's going to be inconsistent. I think he's only 17 years old, but don't let the fact that he plays for Arsenal stop you from benching him. I think most of the time a 4.5 million midfielder should be on your bench, but he can be a great first option. You know, you look at an Arsenal player and you think I should be starting him, but that's not always the case, and I think there are other good midfield options ahead of him. I just think the price is too good to pass up right now. The final midfielder is Kluivert. Now, if you wanted to save money, you could go for Dango, but given that Evan Nielsen was on the Bournemouth bench this weekend, his minutes could be reduced soon. Evan Nielsen could also take penalties off Kluivert, but given Kluivert has such a good penalty record, I think this is less likely. At 6 mil, he remains a great option, but I wouldn't have two Bournemouth attackers at this point. I think if you've already got two, that's okay, but I wouldn't be making a transfer to get in a second one alongside a Kluivert or a Semenyo. So up front, I'm continuing to add in Wolves players by putting Cunha in here. The time is right now to get him in, and I would pretty much sell anyone other than Isak to do so. 3 goals in his last 3. There's 8 bonus points he's accumulated in that time as well. We know their fixtures are great, and he's their key man, and he also might be playing for a big summer transfer, so he might have that extra personal motivation to do well as well. Isak needs to stay in your squad. I know he's blanked in the last 2, but he's someone you're going to want for the rest of the season. I think I'd just bench him in game week 29. You could make the case to sell him to Haaland, but I'd be cautious with that, with the potential double game weeks coming up in 32 and beyond. Finally, I have Mateta, 8 returns in his last 7, and Palace are quietly doing really well right now. He blanks in 29, but has Ipswich and Southampton either side of that, so I think he is worth holding if you have him, and I would still get him in if you don't. He also likely has, well, he has a double in 32, but albeit a very tough double away at Man City and away at Newcastle. But Palace have just won their last 4 away games, and I think they're actually unbeaten in about 8 away games as well. So I think I'd be reluctant to sell him for that time, and I would just keep that double game week player and just ride that blank in 29. So shout out to Fantasy Football Hub. This team rating was 95%. Now, I did also run this team through with Raya in net, and it was 96%, but the team value with Jorgensen is only 100.6 million, and with Raya it was 101.9, and I just thought that looks so much more expensive, you know, for 1% on the data. And I know Arsenal are a bit more consistent in terms of keeping clean sheets, but we've got Gabriel in here as well, and I do just think for the short term, those Chelsea fixtures, they do look pretty good. So if you are wildcarding, you know, normally we say we don't want to use free transfers on a keeper, but I think if you're wildcarding to get the keeper in and then you're just using one transfer to get him out again, it's not like you're having to transfer Jorgensen in with a free transfer and then take him out again. So the point is, I think on a wildcard, it's absolutely fine. The strengths of this team is it gives you 11 players for the blank already, and it does have high upside. You know, it's got those sort of differential picks in there, you know, like a Foden, Mateta, Cunha still at the moment, who, if they do well in the next few games before the majority of players get them in, you can really benefit from those differential picks. The weaknesses is maybe there's too many short-term moves in here. So, you know, Jorgensen, Mazraoui for Man United's fixtures, you know, maybe Bournemouth aren't the team, you know, to continue with necessarily. You know, players like Mateta, if you don't want him for blank game week 29, then you're only getting him in for a couple of game weeks. So it depends on your strategy. And there are quite a few risks as well. So players like Foden, you know, Mazraoui again, they're not players that you necessarily are guaranteed points from, and it could backfire. I think also having Palmer in for the short term, if you did want to make a transfer to take him out again, then that is a bit more of a sort of, it does take up your thinking regarding your transfers moving forward. But for me, I think it's a good team. I think it's pretty solid all around, and I think it's got that nice balance of consistent players and that high upside as well. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you're on a wild card. Let me know if you've got any free transfer questions. It's always great to chat FPL. Please do subscribe if you're new to the channel. It is really appreciated, and I will see you in the next one.